husky was herding the toddler away from the back door every single afternoon. Mom thought it was play behavior getting out of hand. She was wrong. On the deck, something had been building for 2 weeks, and the dog had known the whole time. Kira was a 3-year-old Siberian husky with ice blue eyes and the vocal personality that comes standard with the breed. She was not quiet. She expressed opinions about mail delivery, about the neighbor's cat, about the changing quality of afternoon light. She was not, however, erratic. Her behavior had patterns, and her patterns had reasons, and Simone Delaney, who had lived with Kira for 3 years, generally understood what the reasons were. The behavior with her daughter Odalis, 22 months old, newly confident in her ability to walk to the sliding glass door and attempt its handle, did not, at first, seem to have an obvious reason. Odalis wanted to go outside. She had recently discovered the backyard, the way toddlers discover things, not gradually, but all at once, as a sudden, total obsession. She walked to the sliding glass door. She grabbed the handle. She pulled in the various ways she had observed adults pulling it. Terrier, she had not yet succeeded in opening it herself, but she was working on the problem with focus. Kira began intercepting her 3 weeks into the obsession. Not aggressively, never aggressively, but with a persistence that Simone initially interpreted as play. Kira would get between Odalis and the door, would turn sideways, would nudge the toddler's body with her shoulder in the direction away from the glass. When Odalis pivoted around her, Kira would reposition. When Odalis sat down in protest, Kira would sit beside her, facing the door, posture that Simone eventually described to her sister as bodyguarding in reverse. The dog was not guarding the child from the outside. She was guarding the outside from the child. Simone's sister said it was probably just the husky's herding instinct. Some dogs do that, redirect the small ones. Simone wasn't sure. Kira had never herded Odalis from anything else. Not from the stairs, not from the dog's food bowl, not from anything. The behavior was specific to the back door and the deck beyond it. On the 12th day, Odalis succeeded in opening the sliding glass door. Simone was 3 rooms away. She heard the door. She heard Kira's nails on the hardwood. Fast. She heard Odalis's delighted sound. She was moving before she finished processing the sequence. When she reached the doorway, Kira was outside on the deck, ahead of Odalis, turned to face the toddler, body blocking, both feet planted. Odalis was in the doorway, stopped by the wall of dog in front of her. She was not crying. She was looking at Kira with the specific expression toddlers make at things that are confusing, but not frightening. Simone picked up Odalis. She stood on the deck and looked at the yard. She didn't know what she was looking for. The yard looked normal. Kira walked to the far corner of the deck and stopped. She stood there, looking down at the gap between the deck boards and the ground below. She looked at Simone. She looked back down. She called her husband from the backyard and then called an exterminator. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The exterminator who arrived the following morning was a man named Hector Vidal, 14 years in pest management in the region. He went under the deck with a flashlight and came back out faster than he went in. Beneath the deck boards, in the crawl space between the deck and the ground, a ground-level yellow jacket nest had been established. Large. Established over 2 to 3 weeks, well hidden from above, but visible from the gap Kira had indicated. The colony population was at a level that Hector described as mature and defensive. He said, the vibration of a toddler walking on the deck boards above the nest would have been sufficient to trigger an aggressive response. He said the typical outcome of a toddler encounter with a mature defensive yellow jacket colony was multiple stings, rapid onset of allergic response, and a medical situation. He said, "Did you know this was under here?" Simone said no. He looked at Kira, who was sitting near the deck railing, watching the removal process. He said, "How do you find it?" She said, "The dog." He nodded. He said he was not surprised. Dogs often detected established wasp and hornet nests through olfactory signals, the colony's defensive pheromones, the chemical signature of nest construction, compounds released by the colony that intensify as the population grows. Dog, with a functional olfactory system and a good understanding of the family unit, he said, would not need to understand what the smell meant, to respond to it as a threat between a child and the source. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The nest was removed. The deck was treated. Odalis was allowed outside the following weekend, running across the deck boards with the freedom she'd been working toward for a month. Kira ran with her, lap after lap of the yard, the husky matching the toddler's erratic direction, changes with the herding intelligence of a dog who had studied this particular small human's movement patterns for 22 months and knew every turn before it happened. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Simone stood on the deck and watched them. She thought about the 12 days, about standing at the doorway, watching Kira position and reposition between her daughter and the glass, out calling her sister and saying she thought the herding was getting out of hand, about the morning she'd looked up baby Gates online. The next story involves a golden retriever who sat beside a toddler in a high chair every afternoon for a week. Terrian that explained every single one of them. She had been one sliding glass door latch away from separating them. Kira had known that and kept showing up anyway, for 12 days, in the only language she had.